Hello, Misfits, and welcome! In today's episode, we're talking all about how to prepare and run a pre-written or published campaign. We're talking about these campaign books that you might be finding at your bookstore, your local gaming store, those small little one-shots you found online or through Patreon, and you've been told that there is a full adventure to be run, but how exactly does that translate from a book format to a game that you're running at the table with your friends? That's what we're going to talk about, so let's get into it. When I first started DMing, I ran a published campaign module. I did Curse of Strahd, and going into it, I was a little bit confused. My previous DM handed me this book, and I just remember thinking, okay, but how though? and I remember looking on the internet and reading various forums and posts and watching videos trying to figure out just exactly what I needed to do in order to be a good DM and run this campaign successfully, even though I'd literally never done anything like that ever before. And it is a little different than, just reading a normal book. So let's talk about these different steps that you need to take in order to be successful in running a published or pre-written campaign. Step number 1. Read the entire thing, okay? You cannot just read chapter 1 and then run chapter 1. You can't do that because in these types of books, they're normally divided most commonly by location. So if your players, start out somewhere and they decide to go to the location covered in chapter 5 instead of the location covered in chapter 2, and you've only been reading in order and you've only read as far as maybe chapter 3, you're kind of screwed and you're in trouble. So you've got to read the entire thing. That's the only way you're going to have the fullest understanding of the entire campaign so that you're able to run it and best tackle these sort of things your players throw at you, a la running off to a location before you expected them to, or talking to somebody that you weren't intending for them to talk to for quite a while. Another reason why you need to read the entire thing is there is information that is going to be scattered throughout the entire book that will give you a more cohesive understanding of the setting and the characters and the themes and just the story as a whole. I remember when I was preparing Curse of Strahd, there was a tidbit of information, like 1 or 2 sentences, throwaway bit of information in the very back in one of the NPC descriptions that totally changed the entire way I thought about that character. It changed the way I was going to play them. It changed the way that I thought they would interact with other people and what their mindset would be and what their goals were. And if I hadn't read the entire book, I never would have had that knowledge. A lot of times these little tidbits that are snuck in there aren't even necessarily things that the players are meant to know or find out. They're meant for you, the game master, the dungeon master, so that you have a better understanding and a deeper knowledge of this setting. And it will affect the way that you run the game. Also, if you can read it more than once, that is ideal. If you can get through the whole thing at least twice, I think you'll be better off. I read the entire campaign twice, and then I went back and would reread sections as they came up when we were running it, and that really helped. And on the subject of needing to read the entire thing, I encountered a post that somebody had made in this group that I'm a part of, and somebody didn't know that they were supposed to read the whole thing. They had only read the first couple of chapters, and the players had somehow just already skipped all of the plot hooks and all of the first locations, and were already way far away from where they should be at the start of the campaign, and this person was freaking out and didn't know what to do. And I think everybody in the comment section was like, oh, sweet child, why did you not read the entire thing? So don't let that be you, okay? Make sure you have as much knowledge as you can before you run this game. That's the way to set yourself up for the greatest amount of success. Number 2, this might be a no-brainer, but take notes. Take a lot of notes, and not just like taking notes on like the locations. I'm talking about jotting things down like, what are these NPCs, motivations or notable characteristics. When I read through a campaign, I will write like the voice I intend to use for each character off to the side of them. And that could be just to help me remember what kind of silly voice I'm going to use, but also the voice type does sort of inform me about what type of character that is. If I write, like Voldemort voice off next to an NPC's name, I know immediately that they're a Voldemort type character, and that's going to affect the way I play them. Whether I remember what I've read about them or not, that little tidbit, that little note for myself helps me so much and helps save on time and helps me, recollect things a little bit better. Other important notes to take as you're reading through the campaign, the one-shot, whatever it is take note of any sort of references to other books or other pages or other things. In 5e books, I hate it, but they will often in their campaign books reference things listed in the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Player Handbook, or the Monster Manual, and they won't tell you the page number. So when I'm taking my notes and I see that there's one of those references to another book, I will go find that book, figure out what the page number is, and write it down so that I can very quickly reference that. If you're running stuff online, we've fixed a lot of that stuff with like hyperlinks or just, have your tabs prepared. But if you're running things old school, write down those page numbers or write down those reference books. That is always super, super useful. Another important note that I like to sort of keep track of is the relationships between NPCs. Again, like when you're reading the whole thing, you'll learn that there's a lot more interconnectedness to a lot of these stories and campaigns than what you might first expect. And so as you're reading through and you realize that there are characters that know each other or are related to each other, make a little note of that off to the side. Again, you're just sort of making sure you have as much information as you can up front, and you're making sure that it's like something you can very quickly recall so that you can use that to your benefit when you're running this session. Number 3, this is sort of a weird one, but find the flaws as you're going through the campaign. A lot of pre-written stuff will intentionally leave plot holes or loose ends that are intended for the GM or DM to fill themselves. It's not necessarily the case in one-shots, because those are, very compact stories meant to be told over the course of a single session. But in like a campaign, there will be, intentional loose threads and intentional gaps that you are meant to fill. In Curse of Strahd, there, without spoiling anything, there are 3 things that the party can collect. The book only tells you the location of 2 of them, so it's up to the DM to sort of figure out where that 3rd thing is, where they want it to be. There will also be things like magic items or curses or like weird things that happen in certain locations, and they don't necessarily explain those in these pre-written campaigns. So it's sort of up to you to use your imagination and kind of test your skills at homebrewing to figure out how you want to sort of explain these things and sort of flesh that out. So that's a key part of running these pre-written campaigns, because this is what makes it your game, not just a game you pull off the shelf. This makes it personalized to you and your table, and this is what makes these pre-written campaigns so special. It's almost never the stuff written in the campaign. It's almost always the things that you and your players add to it that make it so memorable. Number 4, you need to sit down and talk with your players about this campaign that you want to run. I think this should be like 2 different discussions. I think before you've even read any of the stuff, like the only thing you've done is read the little synopsis in the back or inside the front cover, sit down with your players, talk to them about it and be like, hey, I found this. This is like the summary. Does this seem interesting? Does this seem like something we want to do? Check with them first. Then read all the stuff, take your notes, find the flaws, etc. And then sit down with your players again and help them sort of create their characters that they're going to be playing as. Help them sort of find ways to connect those characters to the story as a whole and make it a little bit more interconnected. And this can be tough because you don't want to give away anything, but you as the DM need to listen to your players, figure out what kind of characters they want to play as, figure out what kind of sort of story they want to be telling with their characters, with what they've imagined and they've come up with, and find ways to connect that to what you know is in the book, what you have read about. If you see, sort of loose ends or little moments in those backstories that they're telling you that sound familiar or sound similar to some of the stuff in the book, maybe be like, hey, you talked about wanting your parents to have been kidnapped by an evil person. Do you mind if I find a way to connect that to what's written in the book? Double check with them. You don't have to give away any deeper, specific information. You can find ways to still keep that to yourself, but still honor the ideas that your players are having. And I think finding ways to connect your players' characters to the story in the book is going to help you out a lot. That was something that I really failed at when I ran my first pre-written campaign. There really was no connection that the characters had to the story. They didn't really have any personal connection to Barovia or the people in Barovia, and so exploring backstories didn't really happen. It was just these people that had just been dropped into this other place and trying to get out of it. And, I think that's a common way that Curse of Strahd gets run, but I think if I could go back, I would do that slightly differently and find a way to add just an even further layer of depth to that. So you need to, up front, sit down, go over sort of the themes and idea of the campaign, check with your players, see if that's something they want to play, and then after you've got all this knowledge about the content and the game, find ways to sit down and just sort of once again, go over expectations and ideas again and find ways to connect that to the campaign as a whole without revealing too much. Step number 5, and this is the one that you're going to repeat from here on out to the end of time. Review some of the material that is written in the book and prepare what you need for your first session. Now, this is what's tricky. If you've never run a game before, you're going to have no idea how long it takes to get through a session. You're not going to have any idea of what's going to end up getting covered in that session. And it's going to vary from table to table. This is going to depend on how long you and your players want to play. It's going to depend on how long it takes for your players to accomplish tasks and complete encounters, and it's also going to depend on how much role play your players want to do, and it's going to take time to figure out how much can get accomplished in a session. If I were you, I would try to pick for the first session like a goal that you want accomplished, or a location you want them to reach, and prepare everything up to that point, and maybe a little bit after, and just have in your mind, this is our hard cutoff. Once they accomplish this, we will stop. And at my table, we normally, we only play for like 3 hours, so I normally prepare 2 encounters and, be ready to run like an hour of roleplay. But my table will roleplay for a long time, and it's a big table, so it takes a while for everybody to, get through what they want to accomplish. For some people, that's not going to happen. So try to set some sort of goal, have a couple encounters prepared, have, some NPCs and RP moments prepared, and just try to figure out what that ending goal is going to be. And that will give you an idea of how much to prepare for later sessions. Something really important to note, though, as you're going through this campaign and looking at upcoming sessions and trying to figure out what to prepare, a good rule of thumb is if you know the party is going to a particular location, you need to prepare everything for that location, okay? So if you know that they're going to visit the big fancy mansion at the top of the hill, prepare the entire mansion, whatever maps that includes, whatever stat blocks come up, read up on the lore of that location and have that entire thing prepared. Because once they enter that front door or back door or window, you have no idea where they're going to go and you need to be ready for anything. This is what can be the most time consuming for a dungeon master. Because I don't think people understand that we have to prepare an entire location in order to be ready to handle whatever decisions they make. And it's got its pros and cons. If you know they're about to enter a giant dungeon, and it's the type of dungeon where, you go down a tunnel and you could end up literally anywhere, you have to prepare the entire dungeon. It's just how that's going to go. But once you've prepared the entire dungeon, your session prep is pretty much done until they've completed that dungeon or left it, which is nice. If it's a big place that's going to take them weeks or months to get through, then you don't have to really do any session prep for weeks or months. But the negative side of that is it's a lot to prepare. For me, if I know they're going to a specific town, it's a small town, there's a couple different things there, I'll prepare the whole town because I don't know where they're going to go. It's things like that. It's not always the most fun, but it is something that kind of needs to be done. As you get more comfortable with DMing, you can probably get away with less preparation beforehand. But when you're running a pre-written campaign where there's, lore and information and secrets and stuff tied to these different places and locations, you're going to want to read up on that before you run it. And you're also going to want to prepare all of those maps ahead of time because, it can take time to stop and draw out the map and stuff. You want to have that done before the session starts. All right, and these were my tips on how to prepare and run a pre-written campaign. I really hope that this was helpful for you guys. I just remember being a little stumped, or at the very least, I had to look in a bunch of different locations to find the information I needed to prepare me to DM a published campaign. So this is I'm trying to help the next me that comes along, that I'm going to put all this information in one place as just sort of a nice broad guide to come back to, so that they're not, reading a random forum on the internet, watching a small video here and reading something on a website there. It's all just in one place. And hopefully this will be helpful to you guys. Because really, the best way to get into TTRPGs is to run these pre-written campaigns instead of just diving headfirst into, a homebrew world. So, a lot of people, this is their introduction to DMing and GMing. So hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully this makes you feel a little bit more confident in your skills and gives you the information you need in order to be confident and move forward. If you found any of this useful to you, please feel free to like and subscribe. That always helps me out. But more importantly, leave a comment down below. I really want to hear from you guys. I want to hear if you're planning on running your first ever game. Tell me what you're planning on running. If you've run a pre-written campaign before, tell me which ones you ran. If you have other ideas for topics you want me to cover in future videos, let me know. I'd really love to hear all about that. But with all of that said and done, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will see you again next time. It has been a very long time since I have sat down and filmed a video. The last, few things I put out, I filmed ahead of time, so it's legitimately been, 2 months since I've sat down and filmed a video. But it feels nice to do that. I am testing out sort of some new stuff. My mic is on a arm now. I've got some new lights, and I do want y'all's opinions on the light. Is it too much? I feel like it's very different than my previous sort of lighting setup, but I don't know, I'm just trying to get the image to be a little bit clearer, and good light does help with that, but I would love y'all's opinions. Yeah, I hope you guys had a great holiday, whatever you guys celebrate or observe. I had a pretty nice one, a little atypical, but it was good overall. And it's a brand new year. I hope you guys had a great New Year's. I'm very glad that 2023 is over. I'm not gonna lie, the past year was really, really difficult. It started out really rough, kind of mellowed out a little bit in the middle, and then got really, really busy there at the end. There were definitely some things that normally I do that I just didn't get to do because I was just too busy. We didn't really do our holiday one-shot like we normally do. I took a lot more time off than I normally do, but I think it was needed. I'm one of those people that really likes to burn the candle at both ends, and I was doing that, and I think I learned a lot about what I think my limits are probably not super healthy and need to be adjusted. So I had a nice break where I could sort of mentally recuperate, which was very, very nice. But yeah, I hope you guys had a good break too. And I hope this next year is good for us. I hope it's a good time. I mean, 2023 was a very interesting year for DMing and TTRPGs and Wizards of the Coast and stuff. A lot of things happened. There were some, good things that happened, some recognition and, it's a more mainstream type of game. And then there were also several bad things that happened. So I'm very interested to see what 2024 has in store for tabletop role-playing games and the community as a whole. But I guess only time will tell. Yeah, anyway. If you haven't been checking out our homebrew campaign, I encourage you to. Our 50th episode will be coming out Friday, so keep your eyes open for that. But that's all I've got for you today. I hope you guys, have a great week, and till next time, guys.